In Teyvat, those that come from beyond with the power to reshape the fate of the world are known as Descenders. The ability to defy and overcome all odds is what makes a Descender so special. However, Skirk is not one of them, a trespasser from outer space, an anomaly with no real place in the world. She cannot change fate. But what if she could? What if she were able to change the doom and destruction waiting to happen all across Teyvat? What if you beat Genshin Impact with Only Skirk? The rules are as follows. I can only use Skirk, all weapons and banners are allowed, no food in combat, I'm pretty sure we don't want to eat this anyways, and no bug abusing. We first start off with our pools, but on the very last one we had, 18 pools, 18 pools. Oh my god, I'm so...
Disciple of Sertology.
I didn't even have to spend any money. Oh, I'm freaking out. First up was Amber's Domain. Yeah, 2 minutes in and we're already stuck. Don't worry, it's not like it lasted another 11 minutes or something. Kaya's Domain is next and Skirk can just glide over the spikes here. Last up was Lisa's Domain, where we skip adding her to our party and perform the skip, which means Act 1 of Mondstadt is complete. Now Skirk is a bit complicated in terms of moveset and it's a very important aspect of this run, so I do have a lot to talk about. But I'm sure you don't want to get into my yap right at the start of the video, so I'll talk about it a bit later. We're gonna move on to Act 2. Act 2 begins with a fight against an Eye of the Storm, and we're a sword user, so usually that would mean we'd have a tough time against it, but... Now let me talk about her burst real quick. Skirk has a multi-hit burst, which means that like Clorinde, she should have lots of smaller numbers to account for a larger total damage. But look at this, she's almost doing Escoffier level damage on each one of her hits. Her total damage is 2.6k. Just think about that for a minute. You could use Clorinde's burst 3 times and still not reach that amount of damage. It's more than broken, it's honestly unfair at this point. What the hell was this Sertology guy on when he brought Skirk to Teyvat? Next up was Zamenhof, and although he was a bit tankier, he also went down pretty quick. Up next was the Ruin Guard, and Skirk's burst AoE is so massive, we're actually able to hit its weak spot. We can only hit it once though, so we can't knock it down, but because of its low elemental resistance, we're able to just slash it up real good. Last but not least is the ruins with the Pyro Abyss Mage, but the idiot teleported into the pool of water. I didn't even have to push him in this time. And with that, that marks Act 2 complete. So we take our free fate and do a pull. Dude, look at that disgusting prototype Rancor on the other hand. So now it's time for Act 3, which means our first fight is against a Hydro Abyss Mage. Okay, well, see ya. But now it's Dvalin time. His shield goes down pretty fast, and we basically one-shot this overgrown lizard. Like, okay ma'am, calm down please. There's no need to have a burst that does 6,000 damage this early in the run. And that brings us to the end of Mondstadt in 3 hours, 23 minutes, and 53 seconds. Now I'm honestly surprised that it wasn't that much faster than Escoffier, considering our damage output. We only beat her by about 6 minutes, but we do have the fastest time out of all of the characters so far, which isn't surprising in the slightest after witnessing such a massacre. But now it's time to get into her kit. Skirk has 2 main playstyles. The first one is her normal attack mode, which consists of tapping her skill and doing a bunch of fast cryo attacks. The second one is the burst mode, which consists of using her burst to do a big wallop of damage all at once. That's if it hits. Typically, each mode is better for different types of enemies, and you can use only one or the other because of her special type of energy. You see, Skirk is somewhat unique in the sense that she has her own type of resource called Serpent Subtlety, and I'll keep it as simple as possible so that everyone can understand. She doesn't get energy from particles, but she can gain Serpent Subtlety from using her skill. In her normal attack mode, she slowly consumes these stacks over time. In this mode, her attacks are amplified and do cryo damage, but there's a downside to this. You can't cancel this mode at all. If you're against an enemy immune to cryo, you have to wait out your entire bar just to be able to use physical attacks again. For her burst mode, it's a bit different. To gain Serpent Subtlety without consuming it immediately, Skirk can use her held skill, which basically puts her in an enhanced movement form. Attacking, jumping, or sprinting in this form cancels it immediately and puts it on a short cooldown. The movement form is a bit flawed, it gets stuck quite easily and it doesn't like very slight changes in elevation. But unlike Ian-san, you can regenerate stamina while moving in this form. Skirk's normal attack mode can also move like this, but she consumes stamina instead. Now I'm gonna spook you with a bit of maths, but don't worry, it's very basic. It's not like the stuff you need for a Skirk's burst requires 50 stacks of Serpent Subtlety and does maximum damage at 62 stacks. However, her held skill only gives her 45 stacks. However, there is another way to gain these stacks. At her first ascension, which we have met since we're level 40 now, Skirk unlocks a passive which creates these rifts whenever a cryo reaction except melt occurs. They can be up to 3 at once, and absorbing these rifts gives 8 stacks. Skirk can absorb these rifts by using a charge attack in her skill form, using her special burst in her skill form, or using her held skill. This means absorbing 1 rift gives you enough to use your burst, whereas 2 or 3 puts you at almost maximum or maximum burst damage. Here's the problem though. Remember the one word I said earlier? Reaction. Skirk is designed to be in a mono freeze team. In fact, her other talents don't even affect us in the solo run because of this. Having other cryo and hydro units means that these rifts will appear easily. However, in a solo run, Skirk can really create these rifts on her own. Most enemies we're up against don't really have any elemental auras or reflections, so it's almost impossible to create them, which means more often than not, we're gonna have to use her held skill twice just to use her burst mode, which means it's not that optimal. However, because we're in a solo run, there's a special third playstyle that we can utilize. A big advantage of this being a challenge is that we're constantly moving around the map to get to quest markers, and so naturally we're going to be using our held skill for faster movement. What this does is it gives us maximum Serpent Subtlety at the start of almost every fight. This means that we can actually use her burst to output big damage at the start of the fight, and then continue with her normal attack mode for the rest of it. This hybrid playstyle is how most of our fights go, with a few exceptions, but I'll explain them as we get to them. And as for her weapon, I put her on a prototype rancor because Cool Steel requires Cecilia Garden, which requires Animo to unlock, but then we pulled a She-Foss's Moonlight. Ooh, Zephos' Moonlight. I actually don't know what that one is. Now, I've really never used this weapon before, so I'll try to explain it for you all. Basically... Oh! Come on. Yes! Yes, yes, yes! Alright, never mind. Oh, this is the luckiest I've ever been. Get over here. Now remember what I said about playstyles earlier? Well, Skirk's weapon again changes all that. To dumb it down, basically it gives her 48% attack and 40% crit damage when she uses her skill. What this means is if we want to get the maximum damage out of her burst, we want to use her held skill first before her burst. Overall, I'm pretty sure she gets more damage output if she uses the hybrid playstyle, but if you want bigger numbers, then the skill must come first. I'll talk more about her weapon later when we hit AR 25, but for now, I've yapped enough, so let's continue with Liyue Act 1. We start the act by getting saved by our one and only student, Chayo, Tartaglia, Ajax, whatever you want to call him, Mr. Worldwide. He told us to go seek out Mooncarver, and here we fought off the Millilith and hit a high of 2,883. Now, interesting interaction here. Although we get reduced cooldowns, we don't gain any Serpent Subtlety. For other characters, you get energy over time, which allows you to use your burst as soon as it comes up, but for Skirk, you still need to manually fill up your burst meter. But after basically killing 20 dudes, our next stop is Cloud Retainer's domain. This time it took a few tries to get on top of the tree, but it took nowhere near as long as Amber's domain, so unfortunately for you guys, you won't hear me crash out. Speaking of Amber, Mountain Shaper is next. One of those. It's this one right here. Fuck! Holy moly, new record, only 6 ambers broken. This is a monumental achievement. Last is small guy. What are we supposed to make? Satisfying salad? You need an apple. She likes an apple. But after one-shotting the Ruin Hunter, we make our way back to our disciple and finish Act 1. Now Act 2 has begun, and we've hit our first roadblock, the pot. Did I just see 3-4-7-2 on a multi-hit attack? Skirk obviously can't heat up the pot, and again, I really don't want her near that thing, so we've got our trusty Outrider companion to help us out. Next up is the teapot, and the only thing to worry about here is the cryo slimes, but since there's pyro traps on the ground, their shields are no big deal. Last up is the treasure hoarders, but we slice them up real good and chuck them off cliffs. Which brings us to the end of Act 2. But we've reached a point in the game where we need to start collecting materials to level up Skirk and her weapon, so it's now the perfect time to talk about it. Her materials are very annoying to farm. Firstly, they come from multiple different places and regions, so it's not very ideal. Her ascension drops come from Fontaine, her local specialty is scattered around Atokpan, and her boss is this piece of shit. Her weapon domain is in the east of Natlan. The flutes can be found everywhere, but the other drop is from Mimiflora, which are typically found in Ochka Natlan. We can forget about the gears and the flutes because they can be bought in the shop, but for everything else, you have to traverse the entire Natlan map in order to level her up. First things first, her local specialty. She uses Sky Split gem blooms, which are scattered around Atokpan and the inside of the volcano. However, for the time it takes to unlock and traverse the volcano, it's really not worth the extra few flowers, which means there's not a lot of them in the overall to collect. You have to do about 3 collection runs before you have enough to level her to level 80. The good thing is that it's easy to traverse Atokpan because of the Tatankasaurs, and most of the flowers are somewhat close to waypoints. Her weapon domain is pretty simple. The enemies are just Yimkasaurs and Saurian fighters, which is kinda sad, but I guess they must be sacrificed for the greater good. Also, one quick other thing about her burst, because it's a multi-hit burst, you can actually clear this domain really fast, because the last hit of the burst is slow enough to hit the second wave as it spawns in. But do it too early and she just straight up aims behind her. Now her boss is the Propeller, and if you haven't seen me crash out about it in the Iansan vid, you won't have to see me crash out again. Every single issue that Iansan had against this boss, Skirk doesn't have. She has very good damage against it, and although she can't destroy the shield by herself, you can charge up her burst while the shield is up, so after it's gone, you can instantly do a ton of damage. You just have to be careful that the Propeller doesn't do an enhanced attack right after, because even if you don't take damage during your burst animation, you can still get affected by the delayed damage after it hits you. But unlike the boss where you can avoid damaging the shield, you can't do the same with the Mimiflora. You can't get enough of these drops in the shop, so you're required to go out and farm them. Now, although Skirk applies cryo on her attacks in her skill form, it's nowhere near enough to break their shields. You need to use her skill 2 to 3 times just to break it before you can actually start doing damage to them. What the f***, stupid bird. In some places, you can utilize burning grass to break it faster, and Cuckoosaurs can be very helpful to do this, but only when there's grass around, and also they attack very slow so they get staggered a lot. But after a bit of farming, we've finally made it to Liyue Act 3. Skirk can't activate this windmill, so we bring out our trusty Tanuki, Sayu. We make our way back to the ballista to beat up the Millilith, and then make our way over to the Jade Chamber to mark out our next location. As it happens, there were Fatui stationed here, but we managed to sneak past all of them as soon as we got there.
It's time to sing!
Now the Wallflowers are cryo and have a 75% resistance, but that doesn't mean anything to Skirk. We're still able to knock them out before their charging phase completes. But now it was time to face our very own student.
So show me all you've got. So very few ever get the chance to square off with. Now, show me what you can do against the might of a...
This is so dumb. Let's see if I can one-shot this child. Okay, here we go.
You got to the noses ahead of me, didn't you?
You dodged it!
We didn't take it!
Oh, almost. I guess he's still not strong enough for us to use both hands. But after successfully beating up Child, we make our way over to the Jade Palace to defend Liyue from Osayo. It's raining pretty hard, it's pouring down like crazy, so here we can actually absorb our Void Rifts and do a bit more damage with our normal attacks. But what's the point when we kill them this fast anyways? We almost died here though because of Osayo's water bombs, but we stuck it out all the way until Ganyu's healing buff came in. What the f? So we blow up the Jade Chamber and save Liyue in another record time of 9 hours, 25 minutes and 16 seconds. It's actually bonkers that we can get an under 10-hour Liyue finish. For reference, we're 1.5 hours faster than our previous fastest run, Escoffier, and 3.5 faster than our slowest run, Ian-san. But from here on out, it's basically anyone's game. So let's move on to Dane's quest. Now here's something that's very interesting. Shield Metatrolls are normally able to block almost all attacks facing towards them. However, Skirk's attacks have such a large area of effect, they are hitting through and even past the shield, and can sometimes even damage the Metatrolls. You can even see for a few attacks, the Metatrolls face away from us because the attack goes that far. And now we're finally against some enemies that we slightly struggle against. What also doesn't help is that my keyboard misinputted and tapped my skill instead of held it. So I really don't like how there's absolutely no way to cancel her skill. I don't understand why they thought this was okay. Every other character can do this, except her. It's really not intuitive at all. I had to wait 13 whole seconds to finally get out of the skill. Now the fight was okay, it's just very lengthy and you can't afford to plunge attack while there's two Abyss Mages because there's a high chance one of them will hit you. Skirk doesn't have any sustain, so if you do make a few too many mistakes, you get quite close to the lethal zone. Now the next fight has a Pyro Archer, but because there's, again, two Cryo Mages, even if you manage to lure one into the fire, there's a chance that the other one just removes it, so it's just gonna be another lengthy fight. I'll cope. What's even cooler is that it started raining, so the fight got way more frustrating. The next fight just had one Cryo Mage, so it wasn't even a problem. So now it was time to face the Hydro Herald. I mean, it's Hydro, what else do you expect?
Bravest adventurers in all of Teyvat! That are the stupidest.
Did I just see a bubble just fly all the way down?
Statue.
And that's basically chapter 1 complete. So let's go straight to Inazuma. First up is the transport balloon. Next up is the police station. Yeah, this might happen quite a lot. But to make it a bit more interesting, we hit a new damage high of 8,075. And after a nice hot pot, we finish Act 1. But during Ayaka's quest, we hit AR 35, which means it's time to level up to level 70. Because of this, we hit another damage high of 9,742, and we've also unlocked another Ascension passive, which doesn't do anything for Solo Skirk, so moving on. Act 2 starts off with us stripping down to fight the Shogun, but this was too much of a handicap, so we were the ones that got sliced off this time. But we managed to regenerate our limbs and make it out alive. Now Child is the least adept with a bow, but what about us? Yeah, totally didn't see that one coming. We moved too much in our burst, so we got our resident bartender to help us out here. And these guys just got obliterated, so on to the main event. First up are the Ronin, and we managed to hit another high of 11,953. But now we face another roadblock. Looks like fate has it out for us yet again. We can't activate these Electro Monuments. So, hi Lisa, I haven't seen you since about 20 hours ago. How have you been? We can, however, chunk the crap out of this huge fella. Anyone feeling delusional? I already know these guys were when we literally two-tapped them. Fucking hell. Yeah, I'm starting to feel bad for the enemies at this point. They don't even get to say their corny remarks. So I'll let Senora say them instead.
As you wish.
Do you have any ibuprofen? I got a headache.
She has 50% cryo resistance, by the way. Surely her second form is a bit tankier.
Merciless. Pale flame. Lay waste to frozen shell.
Yeah, nah.
Merciless.
Goodbye. What the f***? She dodged it. But we do manage to take her down, so it's now time to have a rematch against the Shogun. Our limbs are regenerated with the power of the Abyss. Our mind focused so that we don't miss a burst. Our hands ready with our fragmented sword doing a whopping 18,063 damage. And you know what's strange? Unlike the fight with Mooncarver in Liyue Act 1, Skirk passively gains her Serpent Subtlety here. And if you're curious about our total burst damage, the last burst against Raiden did a fucking stupid 78,163 damage. I have never seen a character in a solo challenge do anything remotely close to this amount of damage. My next highest buff damage number comes from Escoffier, and she only did 13,000. We're doing 6 times that. Skirk, did you bring a f***ing nuke with you when you landed into that? What's going on here? But with that fight over, we complete Inazuma in 20 hours, 32 minutes, and 34 seconds. It's chasm time! And what better way to start it off than casually one-shotting some enemies?
I was lightning before the thunder.
The Abyss Lictor went down really easy. We're able to proc Superconduct, which means we can create Void Rifts and extend our skill duration by absorbing them with our charged attack. And after a few annoying fights with some Abyss Mages, we're out of the chasm in only 23 minutes. So now it's time to go touch some grass. But some of it did turn out to be diseased. We hit the flowers with our charged attack. We hit the flowers with our charged attack and destroy the Next was the indestructible Abyss Herald, and after that we cleared 2 waves of fungi with 1 single burst. Last was the destruction of Ainalahua, which means Act 1 is done.
Guys, flashing?
Are you serious?
Guys flashing? Check the clips out.
Oh,
Act 3 has a bunch of Rift Hounds that hardly pose a threat, and Act 4 requires the Dendrogram trick to light up the monuments. Each one was done first try, thanks to Skirk's movement skill. Also, if you're wondering where the timer went, I did take it off to record Stygian Onslaught. I can assure you, however, that the timer was running the entire time though, and I did put it back a bit later. If you really don't believe me, you can cross-check with the timings of my Escoffier video. I haven't checked myself, but I'm pretty sure they'd be somewhat similar. Anyways, last on the list is these fungi that we freeze-dried, and that brings us to the end of Act 4. Act 5 begins with me forgetting to collect the waypoint by the Eremite base in Act 4. So I wasted 2 valuable minutes trying to get back here. Next up, we followed the Doctor's Trail, but Port Ormuz was being blocked by the auto chess event, so we had to play the entire bloody tutorial before we could progress.
It's been a year, Daddy. I really miss you. Mommy says you went to the store to get milk.
The fight against the Fatui was pretty simple. As long as we targeted the annoying opponents first, there was no problem. This Pyroslinger and Geomancer both went down at the same time, and I was able to get the next Pyroslinger as well because the Electro Agent is just so much easier to deal with as we can easily break their shield. Did someone say more Fatui?
it seems to have stopped.
What the f— This thing trolled me, man. I thought it was gonna move a bit more. Wait, why didn't that one turn?
Fearless.
Skirk, you motherfucker. Scaramouche. Can you do the Fandango? I guess not. Welcome back to Do We Have to Sacrifice the Radish this time? Well, we used Skirk's burst and its AoE was able to destroy the main one plus the one behind it, but the ones on the sides went untouched. So we now know her burst can hit the floating turrets. But then I was scared that we didn't have enough time for 2 more bursts, so I hesitated and accidentally used her tap skill instead. But luckily enough, her autos can still reach the turrets. And you know how she can't exit her skill form? Yeah, guess what? The whole skill button is just not there. I pressed the button to use the dog thingy, but I just can't shoot it. But finally, after the skill ran out, we managed to knock down Scaramouche and deal an unbuffed damage high of 15,234. I just realized
Kidding?
I haven't been showing the
Knowing them and
timer this
connections
entire
they've got,
time.
I'm sure they've heard about it.
And after talking forever, we finally make it to the end of Sumeru. Now, Caribert is one of the Archon quests of all time because of one thing that hinders our progress quite a lot. And no, I'm not talking about the bonfire, I'm talking about this menace. However, we proved that we're the biggest menace and fought this guy for 5 whole minutes without losing a single digit of health. And with that trial conquered, we finished Caribert, beat the Ascension Domain with plenty of time to spare, and immediately get boosted to AR 40, which means one thing and one thing only: Fontaine. jokes, back to farming Mimiflora again. After leveling up everything to level 80, we head straight to Royal Maritime Harbour and begin Fontaine for real this time. The only point of interest in this act is the Royal Maritime flowers. We don't have any Hydro in our kit, so we're gonna have to use the Hydrogram trick to make them bloom. And thanks to Skirk being able to hover over water, we save a few seconds of time, which means that we're easily able to collect them. Next up we cosplay Child, and just like his master, he basically one-shots the enemy. Dahlia, finally!
Huh?
Yes, do it. Oh yes! Act 2 makes us fight some mechs, but all it took this time was a couple of bursts. What? Our student is guilty?
Now that I've gotten a good look at you two, I think you're very cute.
Thank you, Siegewen. I know I'm pretty
After all, heavy is the head that wears the cutesy crown. I guess I just
What does that mean, Siegewen?
Just...
And so let's now skip ahead to Act 5, where we encountered the Trauma Room. Okay, now I did take a bit of damage at the start of the fight here because I wasn't really paying attention, but we did manage to knock down the Hydro Rogue and then the Anima Rogue. So all that was left was the Ruin Guard. We dodge its rockets with our special burst, and after only one more use of our skill, it goes down and we make it out alive. So now it was time to face our master's pit. Now although we don't have an arc alignment, all it takes is a few slashes for the eye to break, and that takes us to the second phase. But we've played these games before. All we need to do is just dodge until the eye comes up and our buddy Nouvelette one-taps them for us. Oh wow, I wonder who that strong lady is. Couldn't be me. Also, I noticed that they didn't update her model for the old Archon quest here. It's still the old one with the scarf. Not that I'm complaining though, I think both of them look really nice. And that means Act 5 of Fontaine is now over. I think it's time for a nice bedtime story. Wake up! It's a nightmare! Okay, the good thing about this one is that we can utilize the Pyro Mage to burn the grass. Unlike the Pyro Archer before, this guy has a much larger AoE and can burn a lot more grass. So it's so much easier to get rid of these Cryo Mage shields. We do get sent to the danger zone, but we toughed it out and managed to stay alive. The real enemy here was the Cryo Herald, who was significantly more beefy than the last one. We also don't have as many structures to hide behind. Technically, these things on the side you can use, but I was so paranoid about what happened in the Escoffier run, I kept them as close to the center of the arena as much as possible. Because of this, I didn't plunge attack that much, and it made the fight a good 9 minutes long. And with the Herald down, we can finally escape from this nightmare and revert the clock all the way back to Natlan. The Abyssal Pylon is our first target, and honestly it's not too bad. If we have our Serpent Subtlety at full stacks, we're able to take down the whole shield. And now the number of name fragments changed yet again. Normally it's 3 in the second half. In the Escoffier run here, there were 4, but this time there were only 2. Hoyo, I would love some compensation primos please. This major upset made me lose approximately 12 seconds of time. So now it was time for the Underground Ruins, and I wasn't putting any of my trust in Malco for this bit. We managed to juke every single shadow with our own skill, and that's the end of Act 2. What the Sigma? Act 3 is a go, and we face off against the Fatui, but these guys were no problem for us. What I was really worried about was this guy right here, but I guess I worried too much. Honestly, this dupe was much worse because of its resistances, but it did go down in the end. So now it's time for war. Oh, you fat ass blocked the thing. Alright. Where is that NPC gone? What the hell are you doing there, bro? And by the way, after defeating this Mimiflora, these guys ignored the Metacho again. And after obtaining hacks, we complete Act 4, get interrupted by Manku the piece of shit. Fast forward back to the present and commemorate the 2,106 warriors that died about 20 hours ago. So all that's left is to embark on new adventures and finally complete Genshin Impact with Only Skirk in 35 hours, 14 minutes and 47 seconds. Now this is absolutely crazy. Last time Escoffier beat Corand and took the top spot by a mere 37 minutes, but Skirk has gone a step further and has beat Escoffier by more than 3 whole hours. This is absolutely monumental. At this point in time, Yansan wasn't even done with Sumeru Act 5, but speed isn't everything. There's a bit more to the run than just that. Let's chuck her in the ratings and see how she did overall. Combat is, well, you saw the video. It's the easiest 5 I can give. If I could give her a 6, I would. How can a solo unit who can't even utilize any of their talents do this much damage? It's so incredibly busted. Her burst is almost hitting 6 digits and her normal attack form comes close to hitting 5. It's really easy to get her burst back up. Worst case scenario, it only takes 2 held skills, which takes 16 seconds, and it's not even bad because her burst has a 15-second cooldown anyways. Her versatility is amazing. You can either do big damage, or you can have lots of application, or even do both. The range of her attacks is crazy, and her movements look really slick. The one and only downside combat-wise is that she has no way to cancel her skill form, which I still think is really stupid. If you accidentally tap instead of hold the skill, you're stuck in that form for a good 10 plus seconds, so have fun doing nothing against cryo-immune enemies. Skirk doesn't really have any sustain, but her speed and her skill and her damage kind of just makes up for it. I didn't fall in combat once this run. For farming, I'm gonna have to give her a 3. I'm gonna have to be a bit critical here. Her ascension materials are not the most fun to farm. The Papilla is a stupid boss, but it really isn't a problem for her because she just destroys it, but she does struggle slightly against the Mimiflora. Also, due to the fact that her materials are so far spread apart, it's a bit frustrating to farm all of them together. With that being said, there's nothing inherently blocking her from collecting her materials, they're just harder to get to than most other characters. For exploration, she gets a 4. Her skill is very useful for exploration. It's pretty fast, can glide over water, has a short 8-second cooldown, and can even charge up her burst. It's not like her movement is as broken as the Natlan characters, but it's still a nice skill to have. The upside about it is that it doesn't consume stamina, and you can actually regain stamina while using it, unlike some other Natlan characters, so there's only a small amount of time where you're not moving at a fast pace. The only problem with her skill is that it gets stuck really easily and can't really go up and down very slight changes in elevation. It's a bit janky, but for the most part, it's very helpful. And lastly, enjoyment. I think I'll have to give her a 4. Now I can't lie, her kit is a bit more on the boring side, but even so, the sounds on her attacks are quite nice, most of her animations are very clean, and it's always nice to see big numbers appear on the screen. I did enjoy my playthrough with her, and it's nice to know that she's still very strong without her broken chungus supports. Skirk gets bumped up to a 4 here, giving her a final score of 16 out of 20 and putting her on top with Chlorand. Now I'm not quite sure where I'm gonna go from here in terms of solo challenge runs. I can for sure say that I'm not going to do an Efa, and I've got a beta only account withering in the backrooms for that one person. I do have a slightly different challenge run in the works, but I need to do a bit of testing first before I start it, so keep your eyes peeled for that one. Otherwise, let me know in the comments below what you would like to see. Japanese Inazuma is up next, so if you want to watch that one, make sure you like and subscribe. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.